Okay, let's continue now with the types of testing. And as you can see in the graph, there are two main ones, static and dynamic. So let's start with static. What is static testing? Well, static testing is a type of software testing that involves examining the software or related documentation without actually executing the code. What does this mean? That basically what you're going to do as a tester is you're going to get the requirements from the business analyst or from the product owner, and you are going to take a deep look, you're going to take a deep read on the requirements to check if they are user friendly, if what it says on the requirements is going to suit the users. You're going to check if there are any errors, or if the requirements, or if the requirements make sense at all. If you find issues, if you have problems, if you find problems in the requirements, then you need to go and report them. Report them to the business analyst or the product owner, so these documents can be fixed. And then the development team should know as soon as possible about these changes before doing any other changes on the code. Why it's good to do this analysis, this static analysis, is because if you find errors or bugs or issues or any issues in the requirements in that document, it's easier to solve them. It's easier to just remove one word and add another word than fix them in the code, fix them after the software is released to users. It's always cheaper to fix something in a paper before anything is started than fixing it after the code has already begun, and or after the code is already being released. So that's why it's important to do this static testing analysis. Let's continue now with dynamic testing. So what is dynamic testing? Well, it's a software testing type that involves the execution of software code to detect errors and defects. In dynamic testing, the software is tested while it is in operation, as opposed to static testing, which is a method of testing software without executing it, as we saw before. So the main difference between dynamic and static is static, the code is not running, while in dynamic testing, the code is running. You are doing testing while the code is running. So dynamic testing, as you can see in the graph or in the diagram, is composed mainly by white box and black box. So let's get deep into them. White box. What is white box or unit test? Well, it's another software testing type that focus in the internal workings of the application, included the code, logic, and data flows. It can help to identify issues such as logical errors, missing or incomplete code that may not be detected by other testing techniques. So basically, unit tests are done by developers. So you as a tester are not going to do any white box or any unit tests. This is something that developers should do. Your work as a software tester will be talking with the developers to see if they have done the properly unit tests before you start to do any testing. Why is called white box? Because you need to know the internal workings of the application. You need to understand the code. You need to know how it's being designed to be able to do this testing. So that's why it's called white box, contrary to black box, which is the next software testing type. This black box, this is where you as a tester are going to work most of your time. Okay, you are going to do some static testing as we mentioned, but most of the time you're going to do this black box testing. So what is black box? Well, black box is a type of testing which examines the functionality of an application without knowing its internals working or code. So, as different to white box, with black box, we don't know how it's being coded. We don't know that. What we have is we have a set of requirements, and we need to check that this black box system that the developers are giving to us is working according to those requirements. So as you can see in the graph, black box is mainly composed with functional, change-related or regression, and non-functional testing. So let's get deep into these other items. So functional. What is functional? Is a type of software testing that ensures that the software system is functioning according to the specified functional requirements. It typically involves creating test cases that cover all possible inputs, outputs, and conditions of a particular function or feature. The goal of functional testing is to identify defects or errors in the software system or application and to ensure that it performs as intended. So basically what you're going to do in this part, you as a tester, is to create the test cases. You're going to create here the test cases to test the functionality according to what is specified in the requirements. Okay, so you need to check well the requirements, and with them create all these different test scenarios or test cases to check that this functionality that the developers are giving you, this black box system, is doing what is specified in that document. That's it. That's what functional testing means. So you are testing the functionality of the system according to the requirements. Now, there is a part that it also tests the system, but not the functionality itself. This part is going to check like how the system is behaving, and that part is the non-functional. Okay, the non-functional testing. The non-functional testing type is testing type that focus on the performance, usability, compatibility, and security, as you can see in the graph. So different to functional, that is focusing on the functionality. In non-functional testing, what you're going to focus on is on the performance. How is the system performing? Okay, is the system slow? When you are going, for example, if you are working in an application with several web pages, when you go from one web page to the other, is the application slow? When you click a button, the response of the system is how quick is the response of the system? If you, for example, simulate several users, like 1,000 users using this web app, how is the web app working? How is the performance? So that's the non-functional testing that you need to do as a tester. But it's not only performance. As you can see, we also need to check the usability. So the usability means that is easy to use the application, is intuitive. When you click a button, is taking you to the correct places. Because it could say on the requirements that the system should do certain things. But when you are testing them, okay, when you are testing them and you see that it's not working like that good, it doesn't feel like that comfortable to use the application, then, then the application or the system needs to be changed, and probably the requirements as well, because no one is going to use something that is not good or easy to use. So that's also really important for you as a tester to check the usability. Compatibility, what will be the compatibility? It will be to check, like, if, for example, you are testing a desktop app, checking with different operating systems versions, like different Windows versions, like Windows 10, Windows 11, Windows Server, checking that the application works fine in all those different operating systems. Or if you are using, or if you are testing a web app, checking that the web app is working correctly in different browsers, like is working well with Google Chrome, or is working well in Mozilla, is working well in Opera, or is working well in mobile devices as well. You also need to check it probably in different devices. So that's the compatibility part. In regards to the final one, to security, is mostly done by penetration testers. So most of the time, you as a tester are not going to do major security testing, but still you can do like simple ones. Let's say, for example, a login functionality. You can do like a simple security check, like if you enter a username with the wrong password, the login is not going to work. Or if you don't enter like any username and you enter the correct password, again, that login is not going to take you anywhere. So those are like kind of the simple security testing that you can perform as a tester. But basically, in security, as I said, is mostly done by penetration testers. Now let's talk about another one that is important as well, and is the change related or regression. So what is this? The change related or regression is done after the system is already being released. So after the system is already being released to users, and there is going to be a new change, there is going to be a new feature, on the application, then you need to check that this new change or this new feature is not affecting the previous functionality. It's not affecting the previous code. So you need to perform testing for the new functionality, and you also need to perform testing for the old functionality to make sure that this new change has not damaged this previous functionality.